what you're describing to me is not necessarily what I'm getting. You know, I mean, you guys are describing the joke pretty well. Like you're saying, okay, well, we're laughing because you're kind of behaving like this beer drinking dude who doesn't really care about like stuff like, you know, family and stuff, you know, like your typical, I don't know, frat boy. And you're behaving more like what we would think to be sort of like this girl who's like intense and pent up. And then there's also just sort of the humor of the difference between the two of you and the fact that they used to date, right? And the fact also that what's fun about it is that you know how to kind of get them going, right? Isn't that also kind of part of the fun of the scene? Is that you know how to kind of get under his skin? A lot of those things, you know, sound good on paper, but, you know, it's sort of similar to what Don Richardson used to say about how, you know, it's one thing to think our objective, but we have to actually play it. So like, for example, if we're dealing with comedy of manners and you're saying to me that on your end, part of the fun of the scene is how tense you are and how pent up and OCD, and you're describing to me like how he would look and how he was cast and all those things, well, that all plays a role into it. So do you see how maybe you should do that?
I see that.
Can I also say, I feel like, I don't know, but I feel like he needs to kind of exaggerate the sensitivity, maybe?
Well, I mean, I certainly am on board with that too. I mean, sure, like if he's, you know, overly emotional and overly tense and overly sensitive, all of those things, you know, sort of, you know, dramatic, overly dramatic, you know, like a diva kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? But aside from even those, I mean, just the picture that I'm getting right now is too normal for both of you. You know, how do they describe you? Like, what kind of how does she normally carry herself?
Well, she's actually very fashionable. She like tries to tell everybody else also how to, you know, be almost on her level. Yeah, and she just kind of carries herself higher up than everybody. She always tries to like do her hair and you know, dress very nice and things like that.
So would she be like a Kardashian? Like is she like fashionista? I don't know. I don't watch those shows, but like how? How? What do you mean? Like, does she see herself as like this fashion woman and like she's totally, you know, Vogue and knows sort of latest trends and I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, definitely. She thinks she's fashionable, but she also like, you know, for the workspace, basically, but a little higher.
But is when she's in the workspace, is it a little bit inappropriate? Like, is it too much? Like, but she gets away with it because of who she is, because she kind of runs the show.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely.
I haven't seen the show,
wear these like bold, bright colors a lot.
So is there something funny about how she dresses? Like when you see her on the show, do you kind of chuckle a little bit about?
She definitely stands out.
She stands out. So how does she stand out? What is she? How does she?
She's just funny to look at too. Like her actual face.
Okay.
Like you find yourself, you're just.
Well, what's funny about her face?
Like,
I think it's her expressions. I think.
What? Okay. So aside from her expressions, does she have a funny? Is she a cartoonish looking face?
Yeah, she is definitely.
So is it just that she's kind of animated? Like, is that what you mean? Like, I mean, would she not be a leading lady? She'd be more like a.
She's definitely like a character girl.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think that tells us about if you were auditioning for this role? What you would need to do different?
I think I definitely dress differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about? I mean, if they're describing you as sort of this funny woman who is sort of it's almost like you both are like these fish out of water characters, you know, in the midst of this office, and they are kind of this odd couple. They're not a couple, but they are sort of, you know, if you kind of looked around, that you're saying to me that they both would stand out for very different reasons. It doesn't feel to me like that's being played here enough. You know, when I say that it's got to be funny to look at, I mean really, like I need to see it and go, that's funny. Like I'm laughing at the way you look. You know, like if you're some, you know, OCD, tense, overly sensitive guy who dresses that way, then you've got to go, if it's a comedy of manners, you've got to go in farce land. Like you're beyond, we're talking about heightened, very eccentric, like really weird. So if you're saying to me the way he combs his hair, like does he comb it like in the center, like, you know, like that, or does he comb it like on the side?
I think it's like on the side, yeah.
Like, but does it look funny when you look at it?
Well, actually,
or him?
His hair, it just like, it's like he has a buzz, but it just stops like right here. Like there's nothing really going on there, and he has like beady eyes too that like really protrude his face. So if you just see him,
you laugh.
Yeah, you just.
So I mean,
because I was gonna say he dresses like pretty normal, like how you would expect him to dress, but he stands out and looks funny because I think his face and also his height.
Look at The Office. Did you see The Office? The show?
Yeah.
So look at Dwight.
Yeah.
Right? So you just look at Rainn Wilson, the actor. He's got a funny face. You know, his face looks funny. It's just cartoonish and funny, right? He wears these big glasses and, you know, he looks kind of dorky and but even the clothes that he wears, it would not be shocking to see somebody dressed like that in an office, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, when we're talking about the description of these characters, if you're not that funny looking as people, then you better work harder to be funny. You may have to work harder than somebody who, you know, looks obviously like a cartoonish looking person if you want to get the part, or at least have a better chance of getting the role. Because somebody's going to walk in who looks, you know, as you said, sort of very animated or very dorky, and you're going to be competing against that.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that there's absolutely nothing you can do, you know, to get the role if they're going to hire somebody who looks, you know, like 400 pounds, you know, and looks, you know, and is only like Tony Danza. Tony Danza. Danny DeVito, I'm thinking of Taxi. Okay, they're both cartoons, but in different ways. But, you know, Danny DeVito is like that big, and he's like that wide, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
You know, and they would describe him as being, you know, typical, like, you know, he works at it, he's got a Napoleon complex, and he's got like these issues of feeling like he's not enough, so he's always trying harder to be the man or being tough or all those. That's how they're describing him. And so you're going to have to work harder if you're, in a sense, more attractive. There are worse problems to have. You know? I mean, better that way, in my opinion, than the other way.
Yeah.
You know? So what do you think you would do? You would have, if you're saying and describing to me that she is sort of sees herself as all that in the midst of all of this, then you're going to have to go further with it. You know, maybe she behaves like she's a supermodel, or carries herself like she owns the world, and sort of the way she dresses, she behaves like she's like on the cover of Vogue. Maybe you're going to have to, you know, be like way more dorky, and like maybe he, you know, wears a really tight button shirt up here, and he's got like not necessarily a bow tie, but if we're talking in farce or comedy of manners, you're going to have to go to that place. Otherwise, they're just too ordinary.
Yeah.
Then we're not dealing with farce.